This is Off Topic, a show where two men with the attention spans of a squirrel try and fail to stay on topic with today's subject. Where will their oral meanderings take us? Well, stick around and listen, because today's Off topic is... Cassandra Peterson, aka Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, horror icon, and a bit of a real-life Forrest Gump, as you'll come to find. Nate, what do you know about Cassandra Peterson, or Elvira as she's known?
Forrest Gump? Does she have mental problems? I didn't know that.
We're gonna stick with that. Yes, we'll learn later about how she sits on park benches and mumbles about life being a box of chocolates.
It talks to random people at the bus stop. That was one thing about that movie. It's like, who sits there, no matter how nice they are? If someone's sitting there telling me about their life story, I immediately find somewhere else to stand.
Right?
But anyway, with Elvira, I mean, I know who she is. I've never seen any like movies or like anything that's focused around her. I've seen her in cameos and things like that. And of course, boobs. I mean, as a boob guy, that's just, I mean, immediately just, and I mean, that was the point, you know, about Elvira. It wasn't like she was hiding them. It wasn't like, oh, here's this Mistress of the Dark who happens to have large breasts. It's more like, hey, there's large breasts attached to an Elvira.
Yeah, there's large breasts attached to this vampire woman.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, was she a vampire? I mean, I'm sure.
No, she wasn't a vampire. She was we'll get into that later. Sort of originally she was kind of supposed to be, but it changed a little bit.
Yeah, it's like I always felt it was implied, but she wasn't.
Yeah. We'll talk about that later. A lot later, actually, because we gotta get through her childhood first. But childhood. Yay. I pretty much know the same thing about you. It's like I remember seeing her movie back in the late 80s, and I really liked it. But outside of that, I never saw her original Leo horror show series where she did movies and any of the other stuff. I just mainly remember from that one movie and a whole lot of cameos, especially around Halloween. She was everywhere around Halloween. Are you ready, Nate? Are you ready to learn?
I'm ready. Let's do this.
Cassandra Peterson was born September 17th, 1951, to parents Phyllis and Dale Peterson in a hospital in the small town of Manhattan, Kansas. Cassandra was named after one of her mother's teachers, whom her father had also dated at one point. Figure that one out. Kind of makes you wonder who came up with the idea for the name. Was it the mom being like, hey, we should name it after this teacher I liked? Or was it the dad being like, hey, we should name this after the teacher I liked?
Come to find out later, she's like, wait a minute.
However, Cassandra's immediate and extended family actually resided in teeny tiny rural Randolph, Kansas, some 25 miles away on the family farm that they took over from Cassandra's grandparents. Manhattan was just the nearest hospital they could get to, so that's how small and podunk this tiny little town that they grew up in was. They attempted to grow...
Oh, yeah.
Huh?
I was like, oh, yeah, Kansas is one of those states that you forget exists until you do. Until someone's mentioned either Wizard of Oz or, like, you're going down and, like, listing the states in America.
Exactly.
So... I'm sorry for anybody listening in Kansas. I mean, sure, it's a lovely state. I've driven through it once. It was fun.
Yeah, a lot of cornfields, I would guess.
I'm just talking about. Yeah, I'm just talking about for me personally, the people I know. I have very rarely has anyone uttered the name Kansas outside of Wizard of Oz.
The main question people ask in Kansas is how to get away from Kansas. The family attempted to grow Milo, a type of animal feed, and failed. They then tried raising livestock, which also failed when a cold snap killed off all their cattle. As everybody that tries it finds out, farming is very difficult. And Cassandra's mother was eventually like, I don't want to do this farming life. You're getting a real job, sir. So the dad went and got a job in Manhattan at the Singer's sewing machine store. Back in the day when you could raise a whole family working at a sewing machine store.
So they left Kansas? Is that what you're saying?
Nope. Actually, they are still in Kansas right now.
So how do you work in Manhattan?
Manhattan, Kansas.
Oh, okay. Which is thoroughly confused.
Sorry about that. I meant to...
What?
It's a very... Sorry, family. I've got my work week. I'll be back in a month.
Hey, Jesus Christ. Like, oh yeah, he's a second family no one would ever know.
We only see Dad once every 5 years. Yeah, he just works in Manhattan for reasons. But no, there's actually Manhattan, Kansas, which is also Cassandra calls the Little Apple, or the city that always sleeps. We fast forward to the first big event in her life, Good Friday, 1953. While her father was gone at work and her mother distracted doing Lord knows what, then 18-month-old Cassandra went into the kitchen and proceeded to pull a chair over to the stove where a giant cast iron pot full of boiling eggs was sitting. Cassandra climbed up on the chair, and I'm guessing in an attempt to pull herself up higher, pulled the giant pot of boiling water down upon her, melting the hair off her head, fusing her eyes shut, and giving her third-degree burns over a third of her body. Not good times.
Ooh.
Yeah, her mother heard the screaming and came into the kitchen to see the child writhing in agony on the floor. Her mother proceeded to do the old farmer's trick of dealing with burns by proceeding to slather lard all over Cassandra's body. This actually did far more harm than good, as it resulted in even more skin being pulled off the body as she tried to smear it on. It was like, hey, I'm going to smear lard on here. Oh, wait, your skin's coming off, kid. Oops.
And of course, I mean, I complain about boomers all the time, and I think, Elvira's a boomer. But I mean, the generation before hers was worse.
Yeah.
Like, they were just kind of like, oh no, Timmy died.
Oh, well, throw him on the pile. Let's go make another one.
Yeah.
Well, remember I said the nearest hospital was 25 miles away? Well, the mom tosses the kid in the family station wagon, and off they go down a bumpy, dirty road the entire drive. Back then, conventional wisdom was that if you had third-degree burns over 25% or more of your body, then that was the end of you. Infection would spread and take you down in what I assume would be a horrifyingly slow and painful way to go. Now, here we have baby Cassandra well past that 25% mark, and even more damage done from the lardening her mom performed. And then the whole, long, half-hour drive from the podunk town.
Well, either they're dead or wish they had been, or others wish, or one of those people's like, okay, look, don't look over there because you'll throw up.
Yeah.
But like here comes Elvira. Okay, everyone look down, be polite. She's very nice. It just, and I mean, I know it's a terrible thing to say, but everyone knows what I'm talking about. There's always that person who came in. I'll never forget, like the first time I saw that in real life, not necessarily burn victim, but just someone who was, let's say, on the scale of 1 to 10, will never crack a 2. Huh. But it's this poor guy. I really did feel bad for him. He had the aging disease, and the aging disease of the movies is always like fucking Robin Williams, which is like, oh, he's 10, but he looks like a 30-year-old man. It doesn't look that way.
Yeah,
they do not look human. I mean,
they look like some sort of.
I feel bad saying that.
Yeah, you'd think they were an alien or something that came out of a pod a moment ago.
Yeah, and so I went to my the high school prom for my girlfriend at the time, and she went to another school, so I'd never been there. It was Alabama, and we went there, and there was this poor kid. I mean, he didn't have, he didn't much longer, but it really will. Like, I'm stuttering on because I want to make be nasty, but I will say it was heartwarming. In this little Alabama, Phoenix City, Alabama, no name, whatever. Like, people were really cool with him. He wasn't ostracized. Like, he was at this prom. Like, girls danced with him. None of them were his girlfriend. Let's not say that. But he was actually like not shunned.
He wasn't sent to the bell tower to be locked away during the day.
Yeah, and I really appreciated that. I appreciated that because he was what he was.
Was it one of those when, like, everybody's out earshot, one would grab me like, hey, you want to come see the town freak? Come here.
I mean, that's entirely possible. That's
that way. The best thing in this town is the town freak.
Because I didn't really talk to anybody. I talked to my date, I talked to her sister, and that was pretty much it because I didn't know anybody there. And I didn't really want to because I knew I was never coming back. It's like, you go to somewhere where, hey, every single person in this place can die tomorrow, and you would never know.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't impact your life at all. And that's basically what happened. And so I just had that one interaction, and it was really heartwarming to see that. But at the same time, like,
ew.
He was dying a virgin. That's just how it was. And I feel bad saying that, if that makes me a monster.
Well, I wonder nowadays if something like that would be easier to get laid if nowadays with the internet, just put a picture out there and be like, hey, you want some of this? Anybody want to try a freak for once?
But you know what? There's someone for everybody. I mean, seriously, there is someone for everyone, because I want you to, like, just take a look around, even on the internet, and you can find the most disgusting, gross person out there, and you'll have a child.
Yeah.
It's like, and that's the one thing I don't get about incels. I'm like, okay, that's your fault. It's your fault. Look around. There are people out there who look horrific, and they're still getting some. It's attitude, man.
Oh, it is 100% attitude.
Yeah, you're an incel because you're an asshole.
Yep.
It's just like, once you get past that, you'll be fine. Just
stop being an asshole.
Don't be a dick. I mean, this comes from, I'm socially awkward. I admit it. Yeah, but I know my where I am, and I'm socially awkward at first. Once I'm actually like get comfortable, I'm a lot more social and charming. That being said, there always be a little something with social awkward with, because for some reason I always end up saying something that I think is hilarious, everyone else thinks is horrific. So like I'm like, oh hey, joke, and everyone's like, oh my god, or hey,
You can't say that kind of thing, and you're like, why? Oh wait.
yeah, oh, here's this anecdote. I thought it was really funny. You know, like I remember one time I was in a group and I mentioned, oh yeah, there's a midget porn actor who looked like Gordon Ramsay. Like he would, yeah, like he got killed because he was in a what was it? He died in a den, or he was found dead in a what was the beaver? Beaver, like not beaver. Oh. No, like a literal den. Like it was,
like like a badger den kind of thing.
Badger, yes, thanks. As I was looking for the badger, he was like died in a badger den. It's like that's hilarious. It's awful for that guy, but it's hilarious, and no one laughed. I was the only one that was hilarious. I'm like, come on, man! It's a Gordon Ramsay midget who got killed in a badger den. I mean, what the fuck?
Did a badger kill him? Did a badger like attack him and drag him in there?
I don't honestly, I don't remember the story that much. I just remember that, but he ended up in a badger den. I'm like, why am I the only one laughing here?
He was doing a bestiality video gone wrong. The camera crew was just like, oh, we can't fix it. Oh, bye.
Oh my god. This bestiality video has turned to a snuff film.
We could charge more for this
keep
now.
Rolling, keep rolling. Yeah.
We're killing two birds with one stone here. We can make tons of money.
Real quick, I apologize to the listeners. I'm sorry, that's my humor. If you can't get on board with that, then I don't know. I would appreciate you still listening, but this yeah. So she got burned, but I mean, obviously she came out okay. So how that happened?
Lucky for everyone involved, this tiny little hospital in Manhattan, Kansas, actually had one of the best burn treatment wards and doctors in the U.S. at the time. And on top of that, they just got access to new experimental penicillin treatment that they thought could do the trick. After some parental consent was given, they proceeded with the experimental treatments, and several touch-and-go days later, they deemed her a survivor. A little bit after that, she was healthy enough to undergo massive skin grafts, peeling skin from her stomach and thighs to be grafted onto her back, shoulders, neck, and ankles. Many weeks she was in the hospital and had to make many follow-up trips over the next couple of years, but she survived. This was actually Cassandra's first taste of fame, as both the injury and the recovery made the newspapers in the area. Inside her book, there's actually a little picture section, and they actually have a picture of the article in the book. And they got her birthday wrong. They said she was born on the 18th and not the 17th. Yeah, funny. I was actually looking at the article. I'm like, wait a minute, that's wrong.
And sadly, it did bankrupt her family to do it. Or not sadly, it was like sadly versus nowadays. Not like, oh, darn it didn't bankrupt. You know, it's like, I mean, like, sadly for us in the future, it's like that would ruin a family. Back then, it's like, okay, came out with it. We're
yeah, right. Okay. I'll pick up an extra shift at the swinger store. That'll cover all these medical bills.
There you
go. Well, she was left alive. She was also left with massive red and purple scars over a good portion of her body. These scars would actually wind up being with her for a fair amount of her life, and were actually kept in mind for the Elvira dress, as it was designed to conveniently cover up the worst of her scarring. As you can guess, these scars that she had led to self-confidence issues, which were exacerbated by her fellow students teasing her or treating her differently. However, the worst of the bullying would actually come from Cassandra's emotionally and physically abusive mother, who would use her scars to belittle her whenever she felt like crushing her daughter's spirits. She would also make fun of Cassandra's ears, glasses, hairs, and would explain in great detail why all the boys didn't like her. That kind of fun emotional abuse.
To what end? Obviously, this is not. She's not the only one that's happened to. It's just, to what end? You know, yeah. Why? Like, why?
Bully's got a bully, dude. That's all I can think of. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much
very
it.
True.
Miserable on the inside, got to make everybody else miserable too.
Yeah.
And when the emotional abuse wasn't working, she'd occasionally slap around Cassandra too. So, naturally, the mom was very charming and fun around other people and other families, just not her own. However, Cassandra and her father, Dale, had a great relationship when she was a child, because her father, when she was in the hospital, swore up and down that if she pulled through, he would be the best dad ever for her and give her everything she ever wanted. And he would actually do his best to follow through on this too. You know, they would romp and play and go out and do stuff together, lay on the floor, watch Gunsmoke and the such. To young Cassandra, her father was everything to her. It should be noted, though, he was not like a perfect man by any means. He was an alcoholic who swore up a storm and liked to pick fights with pretty much anybody who looked at him funny. Cassandra remembers one time a dude was tailgating her dad really bad down the road. So her dad like pulled over on the side of the road and like did the motion, hey, pull over too kind of thing. And the dude did. Cassandra's dad just walked up and did that whole, roll down your window motion thing. And as soon as the guy did, he just started punching the crap out of the guy in the car. As Cassandra said, it's probably a good thing people didn't really carry guns back then. On another note, probably the reason people carry guns nowadays because people like her dad was going around punching people back in the day. So kind of a cycle there, I would think. She also remembers one time her dad and uncle got into an argument over band leader Lawrence Welk, and that led to a huge fist fight on the side of the road. Literally, the dad just pulled over and said, like, I will not hear you slandering band leaders in front of my parents again. And they just got into this huge drag-out fight on the side of the highway. Cars driving by, honking, waving, cheering. She was like, huh.
Fucking Lawrence Welk.
What was that?
I said, fucking Lawrence Welk.
Oh, you got to hate for Lawrence Welk?
Have you ever seen Lawrence Welk? That's just awful. I mean, just awful. I was forced to watch. I was forced to watch it when I was a kid. I was forced to watch it. It was just awful. I mean, it was pointless. Hey, let's get these people who are 1 foot in the grave. Let's have them dance the dance floor while I don't know, some jackass plays some music. It's just, oh man, it was like Soul Train for old white people.
Soul Train for the World War II generation.
Yes.
Lawrence Welk on Soul Train would be kind of funny. Also, another upbringing note for Cassandra. Her grandmother was a hardcore Jehovah's Witness who spent much of the time explaining to her how she and everyone she knew was going to hell for awful people. Everybody's going to hell in that woman's mind. This led to Cassandra not being a religious person, as it often happens in these situations. Cassandra had also learned that before she was born, that same grandma was also caught exchanging sexual favors to a pharmacist in exchange for pain pills. This led to grandma getting years of electroshock therapy as treatment for addiction. 1940s electroshock probably was not fun.
I mean, she was lucky she didn't get lobotomized.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
Yeah. Probably lobotomy cost more or something, or the lobotomy guy wasn't in town that week.
Right? Like the traveling lobotomy guy?
Yeah, apparently it was only like a very small group of people that did lobotomies, really, and you kind of had to like grab one as they were going through town.
Oh, yeah. Well, listen to that last podcast on the left about lobotomies. Yeah, definitely. It was a small group of people, but they just did it. They would do it on stage.
Oh yeah. They'd be like, hey, we're going to do a full performance of a lobotomy. Anybody want to bring your kids up here? Yep. Got any kids with problems? We'll lobotomize them right here on the spot.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, it's like, I don't like my kid. Lobotomize him. Let's all watch. Whee! Daddy? No, get on stage. When Cassandra was in first grade, the entire family decided to pick up and move to Manhattan. Partly because that's where the dad worked, but also because the city of Randolph that they were in had been beset by massive flooding that pretty much wiped out the entire town. And the government came in and said, we're going to buy up all this property and turn it into a giant reservoir. So everybody got a pittance of money that wasn't even really worth it and took off for new homes, set up new towns, set up new routes.
So again, so clarify Manhattan, Kansas.
Manhattan, Kansas, yes.
Every time we say Manhattan, I'm like,
Right. Yeah, keep correcting me on that too, because we won't be saying Manhattan, Kansas that much anymore after this. But
hopefully not. She'd never left Manhattan, Kansas. Who are we talking about?
The entire Elvira show is filmed from the basement in Manhattan, Kansas.
Right. It's like fucking Wayne's World.
Actually, it was almost 1 year after moving to Manhattan that the whole family decided it was time to make a change and pick up and head to Colorado Springs, Colorado, where basically it was the entire extended family living under one roof. Cassandra, her parents, her aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents. Sort of almost like a, what's the term I'm thinking of? Beverly Hillbillies sort of method. Except Kansas Hillbillies, I guess, living in Colorado Springs. Compared to where she grew up, Colorado Springs was a huge culture shock. She finally got to see, guess what? Minorities, which she, according to her, she didn't really know existed, that there was, non-white Christian people around. Also, keep in mind, I think she was like 4 or 5 when she moved there, so not exactly old. Her dad would get a job at the local Sears, which entitled him to a 20% discount on appliances and clothes. This meant tacky outfits aplenty for Cassandra and a really neat garbage disposal that was her dad's prized possession. This is kind of a funny story. Whenever a company would come over, he would show off this garbage disposal's power by taking a glass Coke bottle, throwing in the disposal, turning on the water, and letting the disposal rip. After a few moments of god-awful noise, her dad would open up the garbage disposal basin to reveal that all that was left was just fine powdered glass from that Coke bottle. Oohs and ahs were had by the guests, but her dad would take it one step further, and he'd take that powdery glass paste and smear it all over his face to show off. Why? Well, he was an alcoholic, so it might be that.
Yeah, it might have something to do with that.
Even Cassandra was like, why did he do that? I don't know.
Don't look him in the eye.
Yeah, I don't know. That just kind of feels like that'd be a good way to give you skin cancer or something. Rubbing glass paste all over your face. While her dad was away at Sears, her mom made some extra money by running a daycare in the house. This meant that there were several screaming infants and toddlers in the house during the day. And this, along with an abusive mother, made for her not to want kids as an adult. For Cassandra to not want to have kids as an adult.
Yeah, that would do it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my daughter has horrific burns. Let's make fun of her. Why won't you give me grandkids?
Yeah, exactly. This also meant that Cassandra, every chance she got, she'd go hang out with her only real friend at this point, the neighborhood latchkey kid, Marilyn. And together they would read books, ride horses, scrape together money, and buy thermometers so they could play with the mercury within. Fun times in the 50s.
Right.
Yay,
mercury.
Yeah, exactly. She was like, hey, it was cool little balls you could just play with and roll them around in the palm of your hand. My dad actually said that him and his friends used to do the same thing back in the day, too. So,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I guess the real danger from mercury is inhaling the vapors more than handling it. Because I guess it kind of almost vaporizes like a little bit above room temperature. And if you breathe those vapors, that's really what gets you more than handling it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I've never met. I was always told, like, don't mess with it.
No, it's still best not to touch it.
Thermometers.
Though. Yeah.
Thermometers, like, don't break it.
Yeah. Most of them have alcohol in them nowadays, though. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Mercury's not using thermometers anymore, I don't believe. It's all just alcohol. When she was 8, her cousin Daniel would take her to go see movies on the weekends. And one weekend, she saw one of 2 movies that would change her life forever. This one was the first horror movie she would ever see, the Vincent Price classic House on Haunted Hill. The movie terrified her, and for weeks afterwards, nightmares would cause her to wake up screaming in the middle of the night. This actually got her cousin Danny in trouble for taking her to see a horror movie. Yeah, right. Actually, I watched that. I watched the movie. It's free on YouTube if you want to see it. And I flipped it on, just like, I wonder if this is any good. And actually, it kind of is. It's a nice suspenseful movie. It's not like ooh booga booga scary, but it's got good dialogue, good story. Ending's kind of cheesy, but other than that, I actually liked it. It's only about a little over an hour, so not bad investment either.
Which one was this?
House on Haunted Hill, the original Vincent Price one from 1956, I believe, or 1959.
Yeah. I haven't seen that. I saw the remake.
I saw the remake too, which I actually like the remake as well. Even though apparently it is like universally panned and hated, I guess.
The remake is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because it was cheesy. I mean, let's be real. It was cheesy.
But I still enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, there's nothing wrong with cheese. Now, The Haunting of Hill House, that's something else entirely. That's really good, but
I don't think I've seen that
also
one.
a Netflix series. It's a miniseries on Netflix. It's really fucking good.
Oh, interesting. Maybe I'll check it out someday. He said, fully intending to never check it out.
Right. Yeah, it has what I consider one of the best reveals in a horror like story.
The murderer was you all along. Did they hold up like a mirror at the end and they're like, it was you? And you're like, my mind's blown. And you like ran out of the room crying.
Not quite that good, but still was pretty good.
Much as that movie terrified Cassandra, she couldn't get enough of the horror genre. Some of her favorites included a series of Roger Corman horror movies that are very loosely based on Edgar Allan Poe books. But they all had one thing in common. They starred her new hero and idol, Vincent Price. She loved Vincent.
Let's be real. If it was a Corman movie, it was like a parody of a movie.
I think some of the early Corman movies were he tried a little bit harder, but I'm not positive on that either. So
maybe.
Maybe.
I just remember first what I saw was Death Race 2000.
Yeah.
And while it's still it's entertaining, but it was awful.
That might have been Roger Corman's I don't give an F phase. Who knows?
Who knows?
Cassandra loved Vincent and how effortlessly he could play the anti-hero in any movie. Be a convincing villain no matter the situation. She would often daydream that she was being chased by a knife-wielding Vincent Price throughout the house because, hey, what'd be cooler than being killed by the one and only Vincent Price? Yeah, if you were going to get killed by one horror icon, Vincent Price would probably be one of the cooler ones because at least you get like a cool monologue out of the deal.
Yeah, he's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
His voice is just like
yeah, and man, that dude can deliver lines really good. At the beginning of House on Haunted Hill, he has a pretty good monologue, and you just hear the disgust for his wife's in his voice.
I'll be honest with you, like I'm just a bit surprised. I'll be honest with you. To find out he was straight surprised me.
Oh, yeah, he's married like 3 or 4 times. And also
Oh
he
yeah,
released 4 cookbooks, which I kind of want to check out.
huh?
Yeah, who'd have thought? Late night horror movies on TV, Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, she couldn't get enough of these things, and Halloween quickly became her favorite holiday. And unlike other girls her age who played with dolls, Cassandra played with monster figures. And she was quickly known around town as that sweet girl who's kind of weird and plays with monsters instead of dolls and toys. She also really loved, one day when she was looking through a magazine and she realized those, like, monster resin models you get back in the day of, like, Dracula and King Kong and the such. Those were her favorite toys in the world. She would demand those every Christmas. Be like, I want to build some models. Apparently, some of those are actually worth tons of money nowadays, like the OG ones from the 50s.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, she was like, I really wish I had a bunch of those, but her mom threw them away during one of the moves, which, as that tends to happen.
Well, also that's one of the reasons why they're so.
Yeah, that's exactly why all that
worth
stuff
so
from that
much.
era is worth so much money because people would just like threw it away, not thinking it was going to be worth anything. Same with the.
Well, it's not just that, but also parents were assholes.
Yeah.
This is for children.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, throw it away. Like, oh, you asshole.
You just turned 13. We're throwing away all your toys. Now we're giving you nothing but guns and porn. Just like my father did back in the day.
My father threw away my toys. Like, that toy was $1 million.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, that's kind of what happened with a lot of the video games nowadays. The old NES games are worth a ton of money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As luck would have it, not long after this new love of Halloween formed, Cassandra's mom would give up the daycare gig and along with her sister, with Cassandra's aunt, that would open up a successful costume shop in town. Now, young Cassandra had access to the best costumes in town to dress up for Halloween. Other kids got cheap polyester and plastic costumes, but not Cassandra. She got the good stuff. One year, she actually put together a costume and dubbed herself the Queen of Halloween for the year. That's some pretty good foreshadowing there, I feel like. Halloween continued to be Cassandra's jam for several years. That is, actually, I want to go back real quick because I brought up the sister thing. Cassandra did have 2 sisters growing up with her at this point. So, and I mean, they're about.
Was she the oldest, or is she just? I only mentioned that because
I think she's the oldest.
Okay, I only mentioned that because when you talk about like this other story, when even when she got burned, you didn't mention any other kids.
Yeah,
I mean, not that it was really pertinent to the story. I just
still no, that's a good thing to bring up. I'm pretty sure she's the oldest because later in the book she did refer to as her kid sisters. I think.
Okay,
because there's little side stories with them coming up later. Halloween continued to be Cassandra's jam for several years. That is until the 1-2 punch of puberty and Elvis hit her. Along with breasticles came a new outlook on life. Out went the interest in monsters and in with more adult interests like boys and makeup. Vincent
out with the monsters, in with the dick.
That's basically exactly how that happened. Vincent Price now took a backseat to her new hero, Anne Margaret. Gone were the fantasies of being murdered by Vincent Price, and now they were replaced with fantasies of her being Anne Margaret, being a showgirl and acting alongside Elvis.
Out with the fantasy being murdered by Vincent Price, in with the fantasy being murdered by Anne Margaret.
Yeah, at the age of 13, she saw Viva Las Vegas with Anne Margaret, and at that moment, that is when she wanted to be Anne Margaret. That was her idol and her obsession. She watched that movie over and over and over, memorizing every line and dance move in that movie. And she also loved the chemistry between Anne Margaret and Elvis and was like, I want to be there. I want to be in Elvis's arms. Viva Las Vegas also introduced her into the glitzy and glamorous looking world of the Las Vegas showgirl. And that was something that she would now think of her as being her dream job. As soon as she saw Viva Las Vegas, she was like, I didn't know that was a job where you could be a Vegas showgirl. And she just loved the whole pageantry and the outfits, the costumes, so on and so forth. So now that Cassandra and her friend had puberbated, they started dressing in skimpy outfits, and thankfully by now Cassandra's scars had kind of healed to the point where they were no longer bright red and purple, but she was still quite self-conscious about it and would dress around it. And basically make the scars so they weren't quite as so obvious, and use makeup to cover it up too. She also made friends with an older 18-year-old girl who taught her how to do sexy walks and put on pointy bras properly and the such.
Pointy bras. I'm so glad it's not bad.
Yeah.
Hey, like you see those old 50s and like whatever. It's
just like 2 traffic cones on your chest.
Right. Like this, that looks stupid. I mean, that doesn't make breasts look bigger. That makes you look like a polygon.
Cassandra and her friends started going to the local music venue, the City Auditorium, every chance they could to see every band they could. They were really big into music at this time, as most teenagers were. Her and her friends became adept at sneaking backstage to see bands and get autographs. She met such famous acts as Strawberry Alarm Clock, Buffalo Springfield, Steve Miller, and also the Yardbirds. Eventually, they would upgrade from stalking bands backstage to stalking bands at the hotel rooms before and after shows. And Cassandra was particularly good at this. She says she hung out and made out with a ton of musicians and yet remained a virgin the whole time. Cassandra refers to this as her virgin groupie phase of life. That's actually one of the chapters in the book, The Virgin Groupie.
With most people, like, they would say that, like, oh, whatever. But if Elvira is just saying, yeah, I believe her.
Yeah.
Because there's, with her personality, with her sex symbol status, she has no, like, reason to lie about that.
No, she's actually pretty forthcoming in her book, which makes me believe her on a lot of stuff good too, because she's flat out like, yeah, I screwed up here, I shouldn't have done that and stuff. And
which you gotta respect.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, that band, the Yardbirds I just referenced, very famous band. It had people in there like Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, a few others. It was kind of like a rotating cast of guitarists at one point. Well, she figured out what hotel they were staring at and made her way up to, into their room. And next thing you know, she's on a bed with Jimmy Page, making out with him. And Jimmy Page would eventually become the lead guitarist of Led Zeppelin. It was also the first penis she ever touched. And she actually says in the book, she's like, yeah, it was the first penis I ever touched. And I remember thinking to myself, it feels kind of like a worm. And then she apologized to Jimmy Page for saying that in her book.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah. Like, I don't want to be a compare. Like, come on, man. Yeah, right. Like, at least say a snake. Yeah. Jesus.
Shortly after she touched that penis, panic set in. She ran out of the hotel room screaming, I'm a fucking virgin, apparently leaving a very confused Jimmy Page in her wake. She's like, I don't know why I yelled that. It made sense in my mind, I guess, but I was, 13 and confused. Or maybe she was like 14 or something. Dude.
Even still, she also unintentionally saved him from being a pedophile.
Yes, this is very true.
I probably know they weren't carting people at the door, but Jesus.
Yeah, and also, there wasn't really bouncers. It sounded like she was just like, hey, I saw them like checking into this hotel, so she just like wandered up and just checked floor to floor until she was like, hey, that sounds like a band over there. And they just walk over and knock on the door and be like, hey, what's up?
Yeah, I'm sure he rolled out of bed, went back in the lobby, and found someone else.
Absolutely. Mere moments later.
Right.
Yeah. She actually did have some bad run-ins. At the age of 15, drunken Eric Burden from the Animals, he basically convinced her to give her a ride back to his apartment. And as soon as they got back there, he like took the keys from the car and was like, you know what you got to do to get these back. Her. She wisely just started screaming, hey, this asshole stole my car. Help, help, help. To which Eric Burden just got pissed off and like threw her keys in the bushes and disappeared. So,
hey, you gotta do what you gotta
lead
do.
singer of the Animals, kind of a dick, apparently.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah.
But she was smart about it. She didn't like roll over and give up, or she didn't, good on her.
Yeah, exactly. Cassandra, however, was blindsided by one side effect of going through puberty. This is kind of a bummer. Right after she got her tatas, she ran up to her dad after work, hopped up on his lap, and gave him a big old hug and kiss, just like she always had when he'd come home from work. This time, she was greeted with an angry shove and a dad growling at her, you're too old for that kind of crap. Knock it off. This actually devastated her because, if you remember, her mom's emotionally and verbally abusive, and now her dad, the booze hound, is all of a sudden took away kind of the last bit of parental affection she had. Because I guess it wasn't even like a sit her down and be like, now, honey, here's what happened, blah, blah. It was just like a, bitch, get off me. Leave me alone. And he just kind of went with that after.
That's fucked up.
Yeah. There's way better ways of going about that.
Oh yeah, I got 3 daughters. Yeah. There is no world I would ever do that.
Yeah, right. That's just fucked up. All right, we are currently in 1965, and when she was 14, Cassandra would frequent a 21 and under nightclub called Hullabaloo, where she loved to dance the night away. One night, Club Hullabaloo had a go-go dancing contest, urging teens to dress up in go-go boots and show their stuff for prizes and the prizes for the winners. Yay!
Prizes.
Yeah. So Cassandra entered the costume with the best outfit her mom's costume shop could and danced her heart out, only to come in second place to an older girl and her shocking outfit that featured a bare midriff. Scandalous. The first place got a new wardrobe. Yeah, right.
Bare midriff, burn this place to the ground.
The winner got a new wardrobe from JCPenney and a ride in a parade. Neat. Cassandra's second place prize was a job to go dance at a nearby Club A Go-Go, a 21 and over club.
Well, that seems like a better deal. I mean, like, yeah, sure.
Well, actually, the first place got the job too, got the gig too, got an offer.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, that makes more sense. I was like, okay, you get a momentary fame versus a job.
Right. Cassandra jumped at the chance for this gig and had her mom put together some go-go dancing outfits for her. And as of now, during the day, Cassandra is attending junior high school, and at night, she's in a glass cage dancing for middle-aged businessmen.
Again, there's so many problems.
Yeah, in her book, she's like, hey, when I was 14, I was like, hey, this is awesome. I'm dancing for middle-aged businessmen. This is cool. And as an adult, she's like, that wasn't really that cool.
No, not at all.
Yeah. The guys there also gave her the nickname Big Red because of her giant breasts. Once again, kind of creepy because she's 14.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently she had massive tatas for 14. Like to the point where when she was 14, people were like, are those real? Or you have to give me the number of your doctor for those great fake breasts. She's like, they're real. Also, people thought it was kind of, sometimes people had a hard time believing that, a 14-year-old be dancing at a 21 and over club, I guess.
Oh, I would too.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what asshole's going to have a 14-year-old dancing at 21 over club? But apparently them.
Yeah. She wasn't the only one either. They're dancing at that age. They ranged anywhere from her being the 14th, the youngest, all the way up to, I believe there's like one that was almost 30 working there. And everybody's like, my God, she's so old here. In between dancing sets, Cassandra would also sit back, light up a cigarette, and do her homework while enjoying a White Russian. Enjoying the American dream, I guess. It was also here at Club A Go-Go that Cassandra would run into traveling burlesque actor Tracy Summers, master of the nipple tassels. She had all sorts of elaborate routines, and the club patrons loved it. Spin one tassel, spin the other, spin them in reverse, spin them forward.
Because give people directions.
Yeah. Cassandra was mind blown by this new concept and immediately went about practicing this new art. This, at least at first, led to many sore breasts, nipples, chafing, and some bleeding. Apparently, you got to make sure they are attached properly or you're going to have a bad time. Those are her words. Make sure you use the right glue and tape and this and that.
Yeah, I mean, your breasts aren't really known for being like able to withstand a lot of punishment.
Yeah, they're more of a precision instrument or something. I don't know what the term is. Were her parents okay with this, Nate? You might be asking. Well, actually,
I'm assuming yes.
Not really. But at this point, Cassandra was kind of an uncontrollable wild child who was sick of her home life. And she was kind of in that I'm going to do what I want phase. So the parents were like, well, at least she comes home at the end of the night. So I guess that's all right. That's something. However, that would kind of change shortly before Cassandra's 15th birthday when her and her mom got into a huge blowout. And the mom smacked Cassandra right across the face. This wasn't unusual because, the belittling and smacking happened often. But what was unusual this time is Cassandra, who had enough by now, opened up a can of whoop ass on her mom, knocking her to the floor and confusing everybody involved. She just grabbed her shit and just moved right on out. Started couch surfing between coworkers and friends' houses, and eventually using her go-go dancing money to move in with a fellow dancer who was 18 and could sign an apartment lease. So
yeah, I mean, she had a job.
Yeah.
I mean, it surely wasn't a career, but I mean, she had a job that had money. And arguably, she probably had enough to move in somewhere herself, but she just
actually, she kind of did. She just couldn't sign a lease for an apartment at the age of 14, which is why she had to get with the 18-year-old. And also, she was like, and this lady was 18, so she could actually handle a 14-year-old, unlike a lot of people probably. Yeah. So Cassandra was on her own by now, but she didn't really disown her parents or anything like that. She would still go visit them and hang out. And occasionally, they would show up and go on family vacation with her sisters and this and that. But anytime they hung out for more than a short bit, things would kind of get bad again and be like, hey, maybe I could move back. Nope. This is why I moved out.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, good on her for even going back, not cutting off.
Yeah, she didn't like fully disown because she was like, I still love my family. I want to go out and see if we can work things out and stuff. And kind of did-ish, Still familiar love there, I guess, in a way.
I guess.
Yeah. At the age of 15, Club A Go-Go was out for Cassandra, and now she was go-go dancing at Fort Carson Army Base. Yes, back in those days, the government would hire teenagers to go-go dance for the troops and entertain them before being shipped off to war. That means if you paid taxes back in the 60s, you helped pay Cassandra's way. This job was even more lucrative than the Club A Go-Go because lonely and scared soldiers would throw money on stage at Cassandra and attempt to forget the fact they were about to go off to Nam and get murdered. And in Cassandra's mind, this was kind of a little hypocritical of her because she considered herself a peace-loving, war-hating hippie, and here she is working in a military base. But the money was so good, she kind of put her little quabbles to the side. And also, she kind of made up for it, too, by actually, hanging out and consoling the soldiers and listening to them and helping them through their, hey, I'm going to go off to war and die speeches kind of thing. Because she said the overwhelming majority of people that knew they were going to be shipped off to Vietnam were not excited about it, obviously.
Yeah, who would be? Outside of like maybe, I don't know, a psychopath. Like,
yeah, she said there was a few of them that were like the whole, I'm going to go kill me some so-and-sos. Isn't that awesome? But she said those were in the great minority, and she actually avoided those kind of guys because,
Well, I think everyone should avoid those kind of guys.
I agree with that. Usually those kind of guys do go off to war, and then they realize it's not nearly as cool as they thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you have those stories where, I can't remember which serial killer it was, but he got shipped off the knob and ended up being in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I want to go kill people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's kind of how, you've run into those military guys who tell a lot of really tall stories that don't make any sense and you're pretty sure they're lying. I have a feeling that's because they wanted to go off to battle and stuff, but it turns out they just wound up being on a base cleaning porta potties around the clock or changing oil in Jeeps, because there are a lot of jobs in the military that are literally just jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Your job isn't always to go kill somebody. Sometimes your job is to stay at the base and manicure the lawns, because that's a thing. At this point, so
that's what needs to happen.
Yep. You got to have those nice manicured lawns. Being a hippie, she did smoke a lot of weed, smoked cigarettes, and drank, but at this point, she wasn't really into much other drugs. She tried cocaine at this point, but she was so hyper as a kid, cocaine just kind of made her more annoying and not much else. And also, she realized it made her more annoying and annoyed other people. And, when you're high on cocaine and you're aware you're being annoying, it's probably a bad cycle to be on. Cassandra also did try smoking opium once at this point, and she said that just resulted in her in staring at the fish tank for hours and hours and coming up with little plays for the fish to do in her head.
I will say that was one thing I've never done and I always been curious about.
Opium?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe when I'm old and the kids are all gone and I'm sitting there in the old folks' home, like, hey nurse, bring me some opium.
Yeah. Google opium den online, be like, ooh, there's a local opium den I can go visit. Just one of those where you just lay on a mattress with one of those long pipes like back in the 1800s.
Oh yeah, this old Asian guy stops by.
Yep, 100% old school, late 1800s opium den where you just lay there barely conscious and somebody just loads your pipe again for you and just keeps on walking. You're like, puff, puff.
Well, actually, hell, I mean, it'd be in the future. Like, okay, instead of staring at the wall, give me an opium den, put on a VR thing. I'm flying through space. Hey, this is amazing.
Hey, man, if you're retired and done your time for society, fuck it, go for it.
Right.
Also, around this time, she did try acid once, and it's kind of one of those stories as old as acid is, where it's like, her friends were like, hey, we bought this acid. Here, hold this for a second. And she's like, eat it? All right. So she took the entire group's dosage in one go. Which, also, too, when she started tripping, they're like, what'd you do? She's like, oh, I took all that acid you gave me. And basically, as soon as she started tripping, everybody realized what she did, and they all got really pissed at her because, that was all of ours, you dumb bitch.
Oh, I thought they left her.
No, actually, yeah. Eventually, they were like, okay, we're done dealing with you. So they literally took her back to her parents' house and dropped her off, where she was like, that was the worst place to put me.
Right?
Yeah. And I guess, yeah, she basically somehow managed to sneak her way past her parents and go hide in the basement where a dog came up and tried to cuddle with her. And then she looked at the dog and realized the dog didn't have a head and a butt, but two butts instead. And that freaked her out and ruined the rest of her night. She's like, ooh, my dog's coming to cuddle with me. Oh, God, it's a freak.
But, I mean, I guess two butts is worth oh, my God, razor sharp teeth in the butt or something. I don't know.
One day on her way home from working in Fort Carson, Cassandra decided to stop by a local club for the first time, the Purple Cow. Here, Cassandra would meet a group who would change her life forever, drag queens. She loved the showmanship of the drag queens. She loved the outfits, the bravado, everything about it, the song, the dance routines. It kind of reminded her of the whole Anne Margaret Viva Las Vegas setup. She would eventually become good friends with the drag queens working here, and they gave her a side gig dancing there as well, to be on top of her Fort Carson dancing gig. While she was working there, she would learn everything the drag queens would teach her. How to lip sync, how to dance, how to do wigs, how to dress herself. And basically, this is where she learned how the Elvira look. And because...
Do you really need to learn how to lip sync? I mean...
actually, yeah, you kind of do. I mean, if you want to do it with panache and style.
I guess. I mean, okay, fine.
So anyways, because of... basically, she was taught all this kind of stuff by drag queens, she considers Elvira a drag act. So if you ever hear Elvira referred to as a drag queen, it's true. Not because Cassandra's a man.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, Because basically, I mean, in her mind, drag is not a man dressing as a woman. It's taking on an alter ego that you perform under, which, hey, works for me.
I mean, it works for me, and I mean, yeah, I mean, it's Elvira. You look at the drag queen, you look at Elvira. It's just like there's not much of a leap there.
Yeah, absolutely not. 1968, Cassandra buys her first car with her go-go dancing money, a new 1969 VW Beetle, orange. She would drive this car anywhere and everywhere and would even still have it when she got the Elvira job. She would sell the car shortly thereafter getting the Elvira job, a decision she greatly regrets. She bought it with a check, too, just outright with cash. That's how much money she's making a go-go dancer. She was like, oh, here's a check. Bye, thanks. 1968, and go-go dancing high schooler Cassandra Peterson uses money she saved dancing for the troops and goes on a school-sponsored art history trip to Europe, where she would travel and see the sights and think to herself, boy, it would be neat to live here, before heading back to the States. This is more foreshadowing.
And that's going to do it for our first episode on Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Next episode, Cassandra starts hobnobbing with the stars and even makes her way to Las Vegas. This and more next week on Off Topic. This is where the ending jingle goes. This is where the ending jingle goes. I don't know if we need one. I don't know if we'll get one. But if we do, then here is where it goes.